Cool. And we're live. Hey guys, you're watching Tech Radar, Basil here, and this video is all about the OnePlus 6. The OnePlus 6 is expected to be launched later this month in April. Announced it's going to probably, well, it is going to introduce a notch to the OnePlus series. The Verge got an interview with someone at OnePlus who confirmed that we've also had confirmation that there will be a 256GB storage variant and that it will have a Snapdragon 845 under the hood as well. The very latest, the very greatest, and because it's coming a little bit earlier in the year than OnePluses of old, it will probably cost that bit more money. So that's what we think we know, but that isn't what this video is about. Well, it is in part, but it's also about what you guys want to see in OnePlus's next flagship. OnePlus has really become that brand that champions the underdog, because it is the underdog and it champions itself. It's got like really great specs, but doesn't necessarily charge the earth. They introduced an 18:9 screen to their last device, metal body, but there are a few things that we still aren't seeing. We still aren't seeing stereo speakers. We still aren't seeing waterproofing. So that's probably an area, or those are areas that OnePlus could improve things in their next iteration. Right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat room. First off, before I start, I'm gonna apologize earlier. We were meant to go live beforehand, but we weren't. The back end of YouTube was having a bit of a glitch out with some timings. So apologize anyone who was waiting before. Hopefully you are back here and firing your questions in the chat room. Speaking of the chat room, a huge shout out to Shlok Malik, Eli from Albania, Snoop Dogg, Alex I'm pretty sure it's not the real one, Alex Velodre, Hilux Takao, Madhav Unuth, and we've got Full Metal Monkey, who really wants to see a micro SD card slot in there. He's been asking for this since the OnePlus 2. So if you had 256GB, would you still need a micro SD card support? You've got the Huawei P20, P20 Pro, and none of them have micro SD cards, but they come with 128GB as standard. That's effectively Huawei saying that this is your storage, take it or leave it. They're going the Apple route, admittedly being a lot more generous with their base levels of storage. Also a shout out to Kiai Billingsley. Sup dude, you said sup. Akash Singh says yo. Bailey Bruh says hey Tech Radar. Paul Dundigala says hello. Loads of comments from Akash Singh, and the thing that Akash wants to know is what's it gonna cost. So if you remember, the OnePlus 5T, at least here in the UK, which I've got here in swanky red, came out at £449. Reckon, based on, like I said, the OnePlus 6 is probably going to launch earlier. It's probably going to launch more in line with the flagships like the Sony Xperia XZ2 and the LG G7 that are using the Snapdragon 845, or the G7 probably will use an 845. And as a result, it hasn't got that discount kind of that you would probably get from launching a device a little bit later when it comes to the Snapdragon 845. They're not launching it 5-6 months into the chipset's life cycle like with the OnePlus 5, OnePlus 4, etc. So we're guessing that you're probably going to be paying nearer £500 to £600 for this thing, nearer in that region. For everything about this phone, make sure you head over to Tech Radar. In the description of this live video, if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll be able to link out to my very dear friend John McCann's painstakingly put together roundup of everything about the OnePlus 5T and everything that we would like to see in it. In fact, most of the words I'm saying are lifted from there. The whole point of this is so that we can get your input as well. So we have loads and loads of stuff about storage. 256GB, that's a huge amount of storage. It is. What are you more excited about, the OnePlus 6 or the Huawei P20? So that goes from Bailey Brush. Me personally, I think the OnePlus 6 won't necessarily push as many boundaries as the P20 Pro's camera will. I've been using the P20 Pro for the last 5-6 days, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt it's really refreshing to have some new camera software and hardware on here. The hardware is that zoom, the 3x optical zoom, when combined with that software, meaning you can take a 6-second handheld exposure and it composites the pictures that it takes in that time to create something very, very good looking. That's new. That's something I haven't seen before. So Huawei's pushing boundaries. Also, you've got that 40 megapixel camera. I thought when I heard that it was going to drop with no OIS, I was like, dude, this is gonna flop so hard, because with that many megapixels, low light performance is going to be terrible. You need optical image stabilization to keep the shutter open for that bit longer. But somehow Huawei's managed to combine software, or what they term AIS, into a camera experience that doesn't have OIS on its primary sensor, it does on its zoom sensor, and creates a decent image 9 times out of 10. So that's what I like about the P20. Sure, the design's really nice and everything, but it's really the camera that it breaks kind of new ground, like, I guess. But with the OnePlus 6, nothing's leaked that is truly revolutionary. So what we're expecting to be like really cool about this phone is that it's going to introduce that notch into the lower price point like market, along with that Snapdragon 845, the latest greatest chipset, and it's going to be OnePlus, so you know that it's probably going to have a really, really sweet body. Now, anyone who's followed OnePlus before, you'll know that a lot of OnePlus devices tend to be rebadged, not rebadged in like a complete sense of the word, Oppo devices. So like the OnePlus 5 was the Oppo R15, but it was a little bit thicker. It had a bigger battery life. It wasn't rebadged because you had different resolutions of cameras, but to look at, they were virtually identical. And then Oppo released the R11s, and that had an 18:9 aspect ratio, and that looks virtually identical to the OnePlus 5T. Now Oppo's introduced the R15, a notch-bearing smartphone that looks very, very swanky. We can hazard a guess that the OnePlus 6 is going to look very similar to the Oppo R15. Again, that's all on Tech Radar, so check out some pictures of the Oppo R15. But enough about Oppo, enough about me. What about you? Let's take a look at your questions. We have some questions from Kaiser Faith. 750 for the 256 gigabyte version. 750 for a 256 gigabyte smartphone is not bad going. If you're talking euros, again, it's probably still going to offer great value, considering you're going to get a Snapdragon 845 chip in there. But we can't categorically say anything about price just yet, despite the fact that, like I said, there have been a few leaks. I would like to see some sort of waterproofing. That's from Verdin. Thank you for that, Verdin. Yeah, OnePlus has generally shied away from waterproofing. They've got their metal bodies. Now, most of the waterproof devices on the market now are actually glass body devices, except for Sony's. Sony's are the only like metal body, and in fact the new XZ2 is a glass bodied phone. It was XZ1 before it that was metal bodied and waterproof. So the fact that you've got a metal body phone, also the fact you've got a headphone jack, it's really expensive to waterproof a headphone jack. If OnePlus plans on keeping that headphone jack, chances are it won't get waterproofed, or there will be a price hike. It will be a much more expensive device. So I'd like to see waterproofing too. It's much more likely if OnePlus ditches the headphone jack though. Akash Singh says Huawei P20 with love hearts. Yeah, the Huawei P20 is cool, but the Huawei P20 Pro is even cooler from my experience. Again, any specific questions on the P20 Pro, I've been using it a shed load. Is he holding a OnePlus 6, says Paul Dundigala. No, this is a OnePlus 5T, 18:9 aspect ratio, and more importantly, no notch. That's how you'll be able to tell the difference. Again, like I said, check out the Oppo R15. The Oppo R15 is exactly what I think the OnePlus 6 is going to look like. But history dictates that OnePlus always buffs out the battery of the Oppo devices that it's mimicking. In spite of that though, the Oppo R15 R15 has a 3450 milliamp battery, so that's pretty sizable. So I'd say OnePlus wouldn't even necessarily need to do that. 6.28-inch screen as well, so bigger than the screen of the Huawei P20 Pro, which is 6.1 inches. Both OLED displays, both full HD displays as well, according to their leaks. And that's another thing that we wouldn't mind seeing. We wouldn't mind seeing a 2K display on the OnePlus 6. We haven't seen that from OnePlus thus far. And when you're getting into the 6.2-inch territory, that's when the pixels might start breaking down a little bit at full HD, and it really could benefit from that higher resolution. All right, let's check back in on your questions. Anum Tahir says the absolute thing I want in this phone is the awful jitter in video and horizontal panning. So in effect, Anum, what you're probably saying is what you want in this phone is optical image stabilization. And I'm with you on that one. It's very, very difficult to get a good kind of in-video stabilization with just digital image stabilization. Sony's able to do it. Huawei's able to do it to a degree on the P20. I have noticed it glitch out a little bit, especially when you're changing your zoom ranges and panning in and panning out. But the OnePlus 5 in particular, when it first came out, the like stabilization in video was super jittery, but that said, it did get better throughout the life cycle. So that is specifically pertaining to the OnePlus 5T. That's what Anum has. So fingers crossed that either the electrical image stabilization is better, or OnePlus introduces optical image stabilization, which would be a first for the OnePlus series. If the OnePlus 6T will have a notch, it's going to be goodbye OnePlus, says the Indie Grey. Really, the Indie Grey? Okay, so I wasn't in love with the notch on the iPhone. I didn't hate it. I didn't like love it, but it just wasn't something that would draw me to a phone. But what I will say, having used the P20 Pro, the notch actually gives you space at the top for your icons, your notification icons, which leaves the bulk of the screen free for the things that you want it to populate it with, your home screen widgets, etc. And so I'm absolutely not against a notch in principle. What you're doing is you're figuring out the part of the screen that you absolutely need to have completely black, and that's the webcam and the speaker area, and you're working around it as best possible. So I'm not as against the notch as a lot of people are. Did a 24-hour or 48-hour review with this, and so many people were just like, bye bye Huawei, I hate the notch, Apple clone, etc. If you recall, Essential actually like introduced the notch cutout into Androids and smartphones with the Essential phone, and the Apple notch is very stylistic, and that's like looks wise it's more similar to the Apple Watch, the Apple notch. But when it comes to like hating or loving the notch, I actually think that from a utility point of view, it gives us more of the screen to do what we want with. But I respect your opinion, Anum. Robert Gitara, shout out to Robert. Thank you for being in the chat room. James S also says waterproofing would be great. Is it true that it's going to cost $749? That's the dollars. Again, let me just fire a link. In fact, I can't actually link through to TechRadar through the live chat, but in the description that will give you a full breakdown on pricing. We also have comments from Yannick Luce saying that he has a OnePlus 5 and he can't wait for the OnePlus 6. And this is what we're seeing a lot of. A lot of OnePlus fans are really diehard. They want to upgrade from a OnePlus to a OnePlus. And so there's that general kind of like catchment market of like really, really keen techies. I think OnePlus's bigger challenge is appealing to the broader market. They've done it quite a bit. In the UK, they're being ranged by O2, or they have been in the past. Don't know what's going to happen with the OnePlus 6. Be interesting to know from you guys, who are the general OnePlus users? Is it mainly early adopter techies, or is it just general people who want a really great phone at great value for money? Bailey Bruh says Huawei is the best. We've got oh my, loads of comments just came in. is a Huawei P20 octa-core, yeah, it's Kirin 970 processor, which I do indeed believe is octa-core. Launch date from Yuvraj Desai, and we don't know the exact launch date, but we're expecting a press conference to happen sometime this month in April. So we're looking forward to that happening again, like I said, sooner in the year than the OnePlus 5T happened, 5 happened, apologies. The reason we're expecting that is because the leaks are just coming in thick and fast, and amongst them are leaks that it's going to be launching that bit earlier. So we also had face recognition introduced on the OnePlus 5T. Face recognition seemed to work pretty well. It's getting better the more I use it on different phones. So like with the P20, like you can see, this works biometrically with a fingerprint scanner. But if I just point it at my face as well, it unlocks instantaneously. I'm finding that I'm not even getting to see my lock screen on modern day face recognizing phones. None are necessarily going to be as biometrically secure as the iPhone, because the iPhone's firing all sorts of infrared projections at you. You can see our review of the iPhone 10, Gareth, who reviewed it. We've done some night shooting and you can see it going crazy on his face, to figure out it's exactly him who is using it. Full Metal Monkey. I dropped my OnePlus 5 in the toilet and it managed to survive unscathed. It was submerged for about 10 seconds as I ummed and ahed about using my hand. Thanks for that one. Yeah, so most phones actually have a degree of splash proofing, and they've gotten like nano coating that prevents them from being completely like ruined as soon as water hits them. So that's like, most phones are kind of IPX5 type rated, but very few manufacturers are going to actually advertise it until they get IP certified above that. Would really hope that the OnePlus 6 has got waterproofing of some description. More than anything, it just means, like you really eloquently showcased, Full Metal Monkey, your phone's probably just going to last longer, and the longer your phone lasts, the less you'll have to upgrade and the less you have to churn through technology unnecessarily. And if you've got a phone that you like in the first place, you want to keep it for as long as you can, and the OnePlus 5 was an excellent one, and we're anticipating the OnePlus 6 will be a good phone, but we won't know until we get it in. So stay tuned to Tech Radar for that. How does it perform on Pokemon Go? That's from Watchdog. How would we know? We haven't got one in yet. It isn't out, like I said, until probably later this month is when the announcement's going to be. That said, we've generally been pretty quick off the mark with getting our review up once the device hits. So stay tuned to techradar.com and the YouTube channel. Joshua says, will it have a better camera than the Google Pixel 2? That's an interesting one. The Google Pixel 2 camera, the base camera, isn't mind-blowing, but what happens with that is the software gets crazy smart and turns a mediocre picture. You take a picture on the Pixel 2 and it looks mediocre on screen, and then it suddenly gets washed by this magic Google power that just makes it look so good. It pulls out like all the noise, and the dynamic range just looks really clean, and like becomes a nice balance of poppy and punchy and flat all at the same time. So Google's magic is really down to software. What Huawei actually does with its phone is like make something really innovative when it comes to the hardware, the P20. The software on here, for someone like me who likes to edit their photos afterwards, actually processes things way too heavily. What's really nice about the Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL are that the photos you take from it don't actually look crazily processed. So in automatic mode, the P20 processes them really heavily. For a lot of users, that's going to be great. You point it at a person, it's automatically going to jump into portrait mode. It'll automatically blur out the background a little bit and figure out how to make the shot look like Instagram-tastic. And so anyone who wants to just take a shot and leave it on their phone, that'll work really nicely for them the majority of the time. But for, again, any keen photographers, it'll be interesting to see which way OnePlus goes. Will they go the Google Pixel 2 route? Will they go the software optimization route to make things look more natural? Or will they go the Huawei route, try and make things pop, punch and pow that bit more? And that one was from Joshua Ravilos. Thanks for that. Let's see, we've got a whole bunch of questions that just popped in here. I like that Huawei phones have AR blasters on them. Yep, I used AR blaster on my P20 Pro just yesterday. It is excellent for wreaking havoc in shopping malls. We have a question from Sam Burke Kennedy. Wireless charging. The answer for wireless charging is probably gonna be a no, just based on the pricing proposition, but it may well have it. In fact, let me take a look at the design of the Oppo R15, because if the Oppo R15 has a metal back, Oppo R15, then it probably won't have wireless charging. Metal backs and wireless charging don't go together very nicely, but if it has a glass back, there is a better chance. Yeah, the Oppo R15 looks like it has got a metal back, and as a result will very unlikely have wireless charging. It was funny, I was in an interview with Richard Yu from Huawei the other day, and Richard Yu said that he didn't believe in wireless charging. He didn't think wireless charging actually brought value to a product, and the only reason it made its way onto the Porsche design, the most premium version of the P20 Pro effectively, was because he wanted every technology under the sun there, because he was charging over $2,000 for a smartphone. What do you guys think? Is wireless charging a must-have for you? I'd say I find it super useful personally. I find it so good on the Samsung Note devices, and when I was reviewing the iPhone 10, I really enjoyed it on that as well. So wireless charging, it's an unlikely one, but it is one that I would definitely be hoping for. Fingers crossed. We've got questions from following the map. The worst thing they've copied is the notch, so that wasn't a question, it was more of a statement. And again, I've given my thoughts on the notch already. I actually don't mind the notch. It would be interesting to see how different manufacturers do the notch differently, but at the very least, it's a very convenient way of getting your battery information and your notifications to the top of the screen without occupying the real estate that you want for your own stuff that's like games and things. The notch is good for split screen, increasing the size due to the status bar. That's from Kaiser Faith. Haven't actually tried split screening too much on the P20 Pro. Anyone who doesn't know, you can split screen using Knuckle Tech on the P20 Pro. So if I open a picture of my cat, I can swipe across. In fact, is it going to work? There you go, Knuckle Tech P20 Pro, and find another application, say Audible, and split screen. Yeah, so it's really good point, Kaiser Faith. Thanks for that. So what the notch has done in the P20 Pro when I've split screen is the bottom half is just the bottom half of your stuff, and the top half is like the gallery, the image of my cat, which you can see here, and then the upper portion is all of my notifications. So it's, rather than taking space from the image of my cat that I'm looking at, it's actually making much better use of my screen. Again, another reason that I'm not hating on the notch all that much. It's the first time I've used a notch in Android. It isn't the first time we've seen a notch in the Android world. Like I said, aside from the Essential phone, the Asus Zenfone 5 is perhaps the first indication that Android was going in a very iPhone 10 direction from a design point of view. But there are many areas that it does actually just work really nicely. So yes, appreciate that, Kaiser Faith. We have a water test for the OnePlus 5T. It was left in water for 5 minutes and it still worked. There you go. OnePlus should have a trade-in scheme for the next model up. That's from James S. OnePlus, if you're watching this, I would also urge you to follow James S's lead. Have a trade-in scheme for your next model. If you recycle your own products, then it's better for the environment as well. So there is also that to consider, rather than having people just leave their phones in drawers. And if you can get money off, winning. Right, we see that a lot of people, even after me explaining all these things, are still hating the notch. People want the notch to be as minuscule as possible. That's from following the map. We've got a comment from Shamir VTR, Huawei P20 Pro or iPhone 10, which is better? It's going to come down to you. I would say my first impression, the camera is a little bit more versatile on the P20 Pro. iPhone 10 runs Apple's iOS, so if you're sold into that ecosystem, you'll prefer it. It's also a fair bit smaller. The P20 Pro is a bigger device. It's also got, the P20 Pro has a fingerprint scanner, which I'm really enjoying, combined with that face unlock feature. it's going to come down to you. Me personally, I've pretty sold into the Android ecosystem, and also I really like a manual camera, so I'd probably opt for the P20 Pro. Also, again, I'm 6'4", and the biggest screen on the P20 Pro does it for me. But if you want something that's just a little bit more streamlined, you might well opt for the iPhone 10. Also, goes without saying, the P20 Pro offers way better value for money, just on a mere base of specs. 128 gigabytes of storage. Yes, it's £800, it's not cheap, but it is still cheaper than the base model of the iPhone 10. Is that a Snapdragon Qualcomm? Is that a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 inside this phone? Yeah, it's a Snapdragon 845 that's expected in the OnePlus 6, so it'll be the most powerful around, and you can't expect any less than 8 gigabytes of RAM, which will make this the first 8 gigabyte of RAM Snapdragon 845 that we'll have seen to date. That's the reason I'm saying that is because OnePlus has always put 8 gigabytes of RAM in the last 2 generations of smartphones, so why would they do anything different this time? You will probably be able to get a 6 gig variant as well. To put that into context, today's flagships, a lot of them, like the Sony Xperia XZ2 and XZ2 Compact, which have the 845, have 4 gigabytes of RAM, as do the Samsung Galaxy S9, as does the S9. The S9 Plus has 6 gigabytes of RAM. So OnePlus is still ahead of the RAM game, and where that comes into its own is when it comes to multitasking, flipping in and out of games and things like that. 8 gigabytes of RAM will help out, although most casual users probably won't even notice it is there. So following the map also wants to see an in-display fingerprint scanner a la Porsche designed RS Type P20 Mate phone from Huawei announced last week, and also the Vivo phone. Vivo is the first brand to bring the fingerprint scanner to TechRadar's fingers. Our US guys, Matt Swider, got his hands on one and managed to try it out at CES, and John McCann tried one out at Mobile World Congress as well. We've got a hands-on with the Vivo phone prototype device, which is all screen on our YouTube channel and on our site. And what's really cool is it manages to be all screen because you have a mechanical, like, front camera that pops out, and it looks cool, even if it's probably never going to make it to market because mechanical moving parts just mean like break things. It's still definitely worth a watch. Pokemon Go is dead, says Liam Webby. Nokia 9 is an April Fool's joke. Lots of you guys talking about the Nokia 9. Sorry I'm ignoring it all. It's mainly because, like I said, this is kind of focused on the OnePlus 6 today. But maybe that's one for future shows. Why did Huawei get rid of the fingerprint sensor on the back and move it to the front? Maybe it's something to do with not interrupting the gradient design on the back of this phone, but also I think what Huawei was going for on the P20 was making it all about that screen. And what the fingerprint scanner on the front allows them to do is have the fingerprint scanner replace the navigation buttons, so you can actually swipe left to multitask, you can tap to go back a level, and long press to go home. As a result, with no notification, with no navigation buttons on screen, and with all your notifications bammed up at the top within that notch, you end up with like the complete screen experience, like, which just feels and looks really, really cool. I know somebody who is gonna get the LG Q7. So that was from Jimmy. So we have seen some major leaks that the LG G7 is going to be called the LG G7 Think with a Q at the end. The LG G7 will probably be quite similar to the OnePlus 6 in a lot of respects. Expecting a Snapdragon 845, expecting a notch, expecting a fingerprint scanner around the back. Again, fingerprint scanner around the back on the OnePlus 5T. We've got a few devices launching. Normally this time of year it's really dead, but because LG didn't release a device at Mobile World Congress, or they didn't release a new flagship, we've got the G7 coming in. We're also expecting the new Honor device, the Honor 10, and that's probably going to be a real competitor with the OnePlus 6, as was the Honor 9. So there, and new devices from Nokia as well. So it's normally quite a quiet period, but actually it's getting pretty crazy and active. Speaking of quiet, you guys, your questions are tapering out now, and so I'm going to call it a last kind of fire any questions in the chat room. and I will give a brief overview of what we have learned so far. So far we have learned most of you guys think the notch is a really bad idea, even though I've been championing it most of the way through this show. You also want to see optical image stabilization on the back of the new OnePlus 6T camera. You haven't specified too much on resolution on megapixels, which suggests that the ample resolution on the past devices was plenty for you, and you haven't also talked about shooting modes too much. What you really want to see also is waterproofing, and you want to see that headphone jack remain. Infrared blaster, that's something that we haven't seen on a OnePlus before, so maybe we'll see that as well. Some of you guys picked that up as something that you really like on Huawei devices. Right, last few questions have just been fired in. What is the best phone out now? If you want the best manual camera out now, I'd probably go with the P20 Pro. I also really like its design. If you want the best screen out now, that's probably the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, because that OLED display, the Super OLED display, just pops beautifully, and it's a really great size to enjoy your content on. If you want the most premium device and like complete all-in-one solution, the iPhone 10 is a very good looking phone, and it does everything very well, but it does cost the earth in the process, so it is going to come down to your personal taste. Me personally, I am really enjoying the P20 Pro. Also, can't not mention the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. It is still the only device around with an S Pen or a pen of any description, packing 4096 levels of pressure sensitivity, and it too has an incredibly good camera. So last couple of questions quickly. Is there Google Assistant on the Huawei P20? Yes, there is. Google Assistant is on all current gen phones. Also, it runs Android 8.1, which is the latest version of Android, which is sweet. Do you think there will be a OnePlus 6T later in this year that's worth waiting for? There will almost definitely be a OnePlus 6T. There's been a 3T, 45T. Was there a 40? Wait, was there even a OnePlus 4? Oh, you see, at this point in the show, my brain just turns to mush. Yeah, the OnePlus 5T, they missed the 4. That's the one. I definitely think there is going to be, because what's happening now, more and more manufacturers are going on 6-month release cycles. So Huawei has their P series, and then they've got their Mate series. Honor has their Honor 9 or Honor 10, and then they have their V10 or View 10 or whatever it is. Sony has released the Sony Xperia XZ1 at IFA in September, and they've already released the XZ2 now. You're getting like all of these like iterations within 6 months in the Android space, and I highly doubt OnePlus will be left behind. So while and who knows what it'll have. Will it have waterproofing on the next variant? Will it have stereo speakers? Will it have a triple camera so that it can get up to spec with the Huawei devices? Who knows? But I'm guessing, just guessing, can't say for sure, that there will indeed be a OnePlus 6T down the line. But this show has been all about the OnePlus 6. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Thanks for being so interactive. Apologies if I couldn't answer all of your questions. One thing I will definitely say though, in the description there is a link to TechRadar where John McCann has got all of our thoughts together and put them into an article outlining what we think we know about the price, the release, and what we want to see in it based on what's leaked and what we've experienced so far in the past few years. So go check that out. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already subscribed, and make sure if you've got any questions I couldn't answer, ping them in the comments section once this video stays live as a sticky. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.